24th of June of 2025. We appreciate your attendance here and those who are online. Just as a reminder for those who are online, if you would like to comment, we'll need your full name entered in. Otherwise, you can observe, but won't be able to comment until we have your full name for those who are online. I'd like to excuse Council Member Watson this evening. She had a previous commitment, so we'll miss her. And Council Member Severing should be here. He had something come up at the last minute and said he would be late. He was actually assigned to give the Pledge of Allegiance and the thought or invocation, but we have two council members that have readily volunteered to help out tonight. So we will start with Councilmember Dalpaz. He will give us an invocation, I believe. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then we'll have Councilmember Barker lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Dalpaz.
Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this evening. We're grateful for the opportunity to be here as the mayor, council, and residents that are willing to learn more about the city and might be able to provide input that is helpful to us. We ask that we'll have a good spirit about us, that we'll be able to make decisions that are of the benefit to our residents here in this city, and that we will be as attentive as possible to the data and information that is in front of us. We're grateful for all that we have and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Dalpaz and Councilmember Barker. This evening, I would ask if there are any conflicts of interest in regards to the night's agenda. Anyone have any conflicts? I see none, so we will move on. And this is an action to approve the minutes of the May 27th, 2025 and the June 3rd, 2025 City Council meeting minutes. Hopefully you've had a chance to review those, make any comments, and corrections have been made. Are there any further comments or corrections anyone would like to make? If not, I would look for a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Dalpaz, second by Councilmember Pulver. Any further discussion or issues? All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. I would just point out, I think sometimes we forget this. We used to wait 6 or 7 weeks to get the minutes, and we paid, I think it was $15,000 or $18,000 to have those minutes done. Now we have our recorder and assistant recorder that get them very timely and do that as part of their job. So thank you very much for your efforts. Moving to our active agenda. At this point in time, those who would like to make public comments, either here in person or online, now would be the time to do so. As a reminder, please state your name, and if you're a resident of North Ogden, and you do me a great favor by keeping your comments to no longer than 5 minutes. So if anybody would like to comment, if you're online, please raise your hand. If you're here, step up to the podium and state your name, and if you're a resident. Anyone like to comment at this point in time?
My name's Shane Robert Child. I'm a resident of North Ogden. I drive truck for Tramcor. I deliver brick, block, and stone. Delivered a lot of material into North Ogden, including this beautiful building, Smith's, the Aquatic Center, all kinds of stuff here in North Ogden. My question in today is, I've been doing the parade religiously for Jenny's Jazz here in North Ogden, Dazzle Dance. Been doing that every year, and just this last year, I was told I couldn't park my truck in front of my house to decorate the day before the 4th. And I don't know if it was on the 4th last year. It was whatever the parade was, it was the night before. So I was just wondering if there's any way we could do a pardon for like the day before, the day after, so I can still continue to decorate and continue doing what I'm doing. I love serving, and the kids love it. Everybody loves the parade, and
Yeah, I can't speak for the council, but I can speak if you did that and got a ticket, the mayor can pardon you and would be willing to do so.
okay. And I appreciate that.
I think, we've got to be
And I,
reasonable.
over the last, I've lived in my home. I live kitty corner from McCormick's, the old, the museum, which is McCormick's old house. I call it McCormick's because I've been here so long. But anyways, I've parked there for over 15 years. I've never had an issue until this last July 3rd or the day before the parade. And I think it's because the neighbors across the street called the cops because I was parked there, and they were setting up a little boutique. So as everybody walked down to Cherry Days, they could sell stuff in their front yard. And I think that's why they are called the cops and are like, yeah, we can't have this here. But I've never had an issue all these years. And over all the years, I only take a truck home maybe 6 to 8 times a year during the summer months. Like if I'm over in the valley, I'll come over North Ogden Divide, stay at my place and leave early in the morning, and that's it.
Well, there is an ordinance, I think, that prohibits parking, probably large trucks on city streets. But like I say, I don't think we could change the ordinance, but
Yeah, I'm not
I
asking
think
to.
if you just do that one day and do that,
I mean, if we could do like the day before, like the 3rd, the 4th, and possibly the day after, if not the day after, at least we could do the 3rd and the 4th.
like I say, we have an ordinance that prohibits that, but I think in this case, it's reasonable.
I mean, it's
to
just where
the spirit of the thing, and so
because
I've
I
always
do
been
it for the
anxious,
city,
yeah. I've always
I-
been anxious to give a pardon.
Yeah.
It's,
So
I've always been anxious, so,
Chief just needs to.
yeah.
I just,
Yeah, and then I can issue
Yeah.
you a pardon, so
was my only.
just be careful and.
You know, we got the parade
Yeah.
coming up next week, and
Yeah.
last year it happened, and they come up and they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, I can't do this. I'm like, am I supposed to call Megan and say I can't do the parade now, or?
Just minimize it if you would, the time that you're parked there.
Okay, I mean,
Yeah,
my truck's 85 feet long, and it takes all day to clean and
yeah,
dress it up,
I
so.
understand. So, yeah, go ahead, and if you get a ticket, I'll issue a pardon.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know you.
I
you seem
appreciate it.
anxious to
Yeah.
do it, Yeah.
Just
Thank you.
just minimize it, please,
Okay,
and
thank you.
be careful.
Hi, my name is Mike Schoblum. I live in North Ogden. My business partner and I run a small business, just as the two of us in Riverdale. And we're looking at trying to move to North Ogden. Actually, I met Ryan. He inspected the space for us. So we're looking at the space. It's right behind Brilliant Lighting. If you guys are familiar with where that's at, around back, there's just a warehouse space, and there's no storefront, nothing. It's just warehouse space. So we applied for a business license recently, and it wasn't approved because in the business license, I put that we were doing light manufacturing, and I mean like really light manufacturing. So typically, I don't know if this was part of the problem, but like if you look up the definition of manufacturing, it implies that you're doing it on a large scale, which is not what we're doing. So I've been calling around trying to figure out what we need to do. And I think I talked to you earlier today, Scott, and it sounds like the way forward for us is if we can get a zoning text amendment. Is that what it's called? Zoning text amendment to allow us to do that. So mostly we do like a little bit of our business model is we build parts for Humvees. So we make aftermarket accessories like doors, dashboards, center console, stuff like that. We mostly outsource the manufacturing. We use Richard Sheet Metal for all of our laser cutting, their local company in Ogden. machine parts from various manufacturers. And then we do the final assembly in-house, put it together and ship it out, sell it to the final customer. But we do occasionally do some prototyping in-house. So we use a few 3D printers. They're just really small. We can test fit geometries before we spend a bunch on ordering machine parts. So anyways, I guess the amendment would be to allow us to do what we're doing. Oh, and then background on that space. The previous businesses that were there, I think the last one was the fertilizer group that were making some sort of organic fertilizer. I don't know too much about that company. SureCan was there before. From my understanding, they were doing some final assembly, shipping, and using some small equipment there. Timber West Cabinets, which was manufacturing cabinets, and then Pilkington Glass, which was a glass manufacturer. So we're not asking for anything that hasn't been done there before. But talking with Scott today, he said an option would be to have the city council like sponsor that amendment to the text and the zoning. So that's what I'm here to ask.
Do you have questions for Mr. Schulblum? I've seen a couple texts on this. I think you've been working with Blake.
Yeah,
Right.
I know Blake has been involved in it.
Do you have a question, Councilmember
Just
Fuller?
if it's the same, and this is maybe just more of a statement than a question, if it's the same type of thing that's been done there before, which it sounds like, if the other people were doing stuff with cabinets, it's, that's the same type of thing that he's doing. So I don't know. I'd have to rely on staff to say what's the difference and why did it get denied, and maybe it just needs to get reapplied and discussed, because I know Scott's smart.
I believe the recommendation is to maybe, because we don't have a zone that has manufacturing in it. And I think
Right.
Scott's recommendation was we define light manufacturing and make a text amendment to the ordinance. It's up to you again. Councilmember.
I'd rather not,
Barton.
if something ain't broke, why fix it? I mean, if
Well,
that's
Why have an ordinance that prohibits manufacturing then?
right.
I would
but
prefer
if-
to amend the ordinance so that it's consistent. Because otherwise,
I get you. Okay.
we apply that to just about any ordinance. If somebody's been doing it and it wasn't legal. So I think we can do, how long would that take, Scott? How's that fit into your schedule?
It's not ideal, but we'll take what we can get. We have a space in Riverdale. We had like an end of a contract, and now they gave us another month, luckily, but they could kick us out at any time if they find a new tenant. So we didn't expect to have a hiccup getting a business license because
Yeah.
it's what's been. In fact, we're doing much less manufacturing than has been done in that space in the
Right.
past. So the sooner the better for us. But
You're willing to do that? Scott, could you pursue that then? And let's get a definition of light manufacturing that would fit into the zone, get the ordinance changed as quickly as we can. But we need a really definitive definition of what light manufacturing is, so it doesn't grow. So is that acceptable, Mr. Schobel?
yeah,
Just one question.
Mr. Dalpaz?
Can you give us an example of, because I could see the most likely complaint from neighbors is sound.
uh-huh.
Can you give us an example of what's the loudest thing that's ever going to happen in that shop?
Yeah, the loudest thing would probably be an angle grinder from time to time, a little bit of grinding. Like I say, we'll occasionally like build the first product on site, and then we typically outsource that after, but we do all the R&D on site. So,
Okay, thanks.
and
And that, I think that's a good point, Councilmember Dalpaz. Maybe in the definition, we could have a sound parameter. So,
yeah, it's all equipment people have in their garages. Like we have nothing
Oh,
that people don't have in their
okay.
garages. So
all right.
thank you.
Mr. Hess will proceed and get that back to the council. Is that okay? All right. Anyone else like to comment at this point in our meeting? Anyone online that has their hand raised? Anyone?
We have Susan Kilborn.
Let's hear from Mrs. Kilborn.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
We can.
Great. Happy Tuesday. Happy council meeting. Susan Kilborn, North Ogden city resident. And I just wanted to dovetail on something I didn't know Mr. Mayor was going to talk about. And that is, I would like to most graciously and thankfully thank Ryan Santoro for what I think is an exceptional job that she does on getting the minutes out and how accurate they are. And I know internally you guys would be crazy if you didn't praise her all the time because I know she probably is that efficient in everything she does. But I just wanted to say how much we out here appreciate it and being able to read the minutes. Those of us who I wish there were more would pay attention to them. So hats off to you, Ryan. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, Susan, thank you. And I believe from my standpoint, we've got good department heads that are doing an excellent job across the city. Always room for improvement, but very pleased, I think, with our staff and the things they're implementing and doing. So anyone else like to comment? All right, no one else online, John? Perfect. All right, we'll go on to item number 4. We're going to hear from our finance director, Mr. Peter Brown. He's going to talk to us about Gilbert and Stewart and renewing their audit contract. Peter, would you like to just give us a little oversight, see if the council has any questions?
Yeah, Gilbert and Stewart, sorry, Peter Brown, Finance Director. First time here at the podium. Thank you very much. Gilbert and Stewart have been our financial auditors for the past several years, and their contract was up in 24-25. So we just simply renewed the contract for one more year, 25-26. The amount doesn't change. It's just so they can continue auditing us for next year.
Okay. Any questions for Peter? Okay. I don't see any questions for Peter. So we will move then to approve that contract by a voice vote. All those in favor of extending the contract, was it 1 year or 2? I can't
1 year.
1 year, additional 1 year. Please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? All right, that motion passes unanimously, and we'll look forward to another audit by our friends at Gilbert and Stewart. We'll move on to item number 5, and this is a discussion or action to approve ordinance 2025-15, which is adopting the proposed fiscal year 2024-25 budget amendments. Peter has prepared that, so if you would proceed. Before I forget, we'll just start the voting with Councilmember Pulver and come this way tonight. Okay, Peter?
Thank you very much, Council, for inviting me and allowing us to consider amending our 2024-2025 budget. For purposes of those tuning in, a budget is a plan, a financial plan to help us sort of navigate where we're going to be. We just finished a couple weeks ago going through one for next year. This is really us as a city trying to finalize where we think we're going to land at the end of fiscal year 24-25, which ends in approximately 6 days. We'll still have some invoices coming in, some adjustments that we made all the way through our audit, but this is our attempt to come forward with a plan to amend our budget to show where we're going to be. Just some principles that I like to kind of elaborate as I go through these kinds of discussions is, first of all, we want to try to, when we're doing a plan, to make sure that we are conservative in our estimates. So when we don't know what our income's going to be, we try to estimate it down, and if we think that we're going to spend if we think we're going to spend something but we're not quite sure, we go ahead and keep it in the budget. So those are kind of some principles that we took into consideration when we put this together. Couple of things, just if there's questions about, hey, some of your budget figures seem off from your actuals. We have some revenue lines and a couple of expenditure lines that we're still trying to catch up on I'm trying to catch up on. It's really my responsibility to get those in the budget as actuals. So we're working on that, but I have been able to at least make an estimate to figure out where we're planning on landing. So that's there for your just understanding kind of where we're at. Oh. So some of my just highlights here. Most of our departments were adjusted down from prior approved budget with a few noted exceptions. So I'm just kind of walk through these at a high level. We had an adjustment to an increased expenses in U City Council for some transfers, kind of on the material bubble, but that was that's just something to kind of be aware of. We had an HR position that was transferred from the finance budget to the HR budget. So the HR budget, you'll see an increase there and a decrease in the finance budget. Cherry Days. Our Cherry Days was down from the approved 24-25 year-end budget. We had some donations that came in at the end of last summer, but ended up getting booked in prior year. And so we'd like to pull those back up into our budget for this year. They should have been deferred and then released as revenue in this year, and didn't happen. So we want to bring that back up on fund balance as a proposal. And then overall, we need to infuse about $49,000 from the general fund to make that budget whole. We're still behind there. Our aquatics revenue estimates show it coming in under budget, or it should say over budget, around 70,000. We were proposing, and I'll get to this sheet in a second, we were proposing a transfer as well. But we think it's more appropriate to pull it from the aquatics fund balance if we need to be able to balance that. We had show about $125,000 in there on fund balance. And as we kind of watch those revenues closely, one of the challenges we have is as we're predicting revenues, we have a third party site that settles up towards the end of June, and then we'll dump a bunch of revenue in there. And so we're kind of waiting to see where that goes. So I felt more comfortable in adjusting that down from where it was at, but that also put the aquatics fund over budget. So this is our attempt to sort of make it whole, bring some of those dollars from fund balance up to cover the revenue projection loss.
Peter, could I add a little color to that?
You bet.
As you'll recall, we took, anticipating that it would take a couple of years for the aquatic center to break even based upon their plan. We took $175,000 out of RDA and put it in their fund balance. So as we discussed with Peter this afternoon, we spent some time, I guess it was this morning. We're saying that was the reason we transferred that money in. So there's no need to transfer from the general fund because we took it from RDA, and we'll just eat that fund balance up till they can figure out how to break even. So that's what caused no transfer necessary from the general fund, because we built that fund up with RDA, just as a reminder. So
thank you. Yeah, that gives some color to it. So the final one is the capital budget. Essentially, we plan to do a lot of projects in our capital budget, timelines, weather, whatever, bids catch up with us. So we essentially just adjusted it to show where we think we're going to end in our capital budget. And we adjusted a lot of projects down, meaning we didn't think we're going to finish it by the end of June. But whatever we adjust down, we're going to amend in the 25-26 budget. So it's just where we think we're going to end up as far as when certain CIP projects are completed by the end of next week. So those are some of the major overall changes. I have, since this came out on Friday, we've had some new information on a few of our lines. And so what I've done is I've given you a sheet here that I'm calling the 625 adjustments. So on top of what you received and what we're voting on, I'd like to propose that we also make these changes. First one was sales tax. So our sales tax figures came in a lot lower than we had anticipated. And so initially I had thought that we could swing another $150,000 in sales tax. I don't feel comfortable with that anymore. And from a budget standpoint, I'd rather just keep it flat. So we budgeted originally 40 or 4.8 million. I want to keep it at 4.8 million. That's the biggest swing there. I had the next one was we had some, I think it was a duplication, Mayor. We had a duplication in some of our investment revenue interest. We were looking at some amortization interest along with the regular sort of, I think it's a coupon interest that we get on our US Bank investment from that. And I was double dipping. Sometimes that happens, right? So I wanted to pull that back out so we don't double dip on that revenue. And those are the revenue changes. And we also have some expenditure adjustments. I had adjusted our streets budget a little far down. Had some new information come in yesterday. So I'm putting some of those dollars back into our streets budget and bringing that back up. And then we talked about the transfer, the aquatics center transfer. We don't want to transfer that from the general fund. What we want to do is take it from fund balance. So when all said and done, at one point we thought we were going to see a $200,000 swing to the positive. Really, when I put it all together, I think it was about $80 that changed. So it's really just individual budgets this budget really just helps our individual budgets stay within budget to make our auditors happy. But in kind of a way, it really does showcase who did the budget last year. Did a pretty good job. So that's really it. Do you have any questions or thoughts?
Councilmember Pulver?
So it's net zero? Is that what you're saying?
Well, net $80.
$80.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
With these new
Right.
adjustments. So no real big change. I was hoping we would, but I just don't feel comfortable.
And it still could. We still have 2 more months.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if, yeah. And I really do think we will, but I don't want to, for purposes of our plan, our budget, I don't want to put my name to it. So.
I think the big unknown will be the last couple months of sales tax. I think, Peter, what was it, a couple hours we spent today with
Yeah.
you and John, and I think the expenses are pretty well nailed down. The aquatic center still and sales tax, what I'd say would be the two unknowns at this point in time. So
Yeah.
there is still some potential room, but historically, we've come in under budget and had $200,000 of excess revenues. But as Peter's reviewed this and gone through each one, he's saying we've got a bit closer. Although he did use the term conservative, so there may be some, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, there is some, well, we talk about the RDA budget in a minute because it has to be on its own, but that's pretty much it for the general city budget.
Before we start our public hearing, do you have any further questions for our finance director? Councilmember Dalpez?
Would it be fair to say that the revision down on sales tax is highly dependent on the data from April? Because the latest sales tax that you provided to us for April was approximately $80,000 under budget for that particular month. So $80,000 is half-ish of this total delta. Would you say that part of your decision was motivated because of that month, or what was your overall reasoning to revising down?
I mean, that kind of kicked it off, but when you look at that chart the chart that I sent you earlier, if you look at that trend line, that kind of average trend line there, I saw like a $375,000 sort of what I would call a safe swing for the last 2 months. I think that if we predict those two, I think that I feel much more confident about that than trying to predict it being higher, even though we've had some higher months, including last month was pretty high. So, this month I'm predicting a little bit higher than this month. Essentially, is what you think. When you look at it all together, I'm predicting about a $25,000 buffer from what we got this in March, I guess, for April, May, and June. April. I'm sorry. It's so far in arrears. The April numbers, I don't think it'll be that low, but I don't feel comfortable thinking that it's going to be higher than $400,000 at this point.
Perfect. Thank you.
So
I think also I think I forwarded it to some council members, but I can't recall. There was a survey done of citizens in the state of Utah, and it was over 50%, I believe, said that they are holding back on purchases because of the uncertainty there was only like 10% or 11% that said they were going to keep spending as normal. The remainder said they were holding back on major purchases. So,
But Prime Day's coming, so
say what?
said Prime Day's coming, so
Prime Day.
yeah, should be fine.
Well, every week there's something new in the news, right? That makes people go, "Oh, the world's going to end," and then the next week everything's better. So, it's just a crazy year.
So, sales tax, who knows? It's been like this. It's really crazy this year.
Really volatile.
Any other questions for Peter before we open the public hearing? Peter, thank you for your efforts on that. At this point in time then, we'll open the public hearing for anyone online or here in the audience that would like to seek any information or make additional comments for the council to consider before we enter in approving the amendments. Anyone?
Reed Miller, North Ogden. Hey, I just want to know how much does the city get from the sales tax? Do they get all the sales tax for purchases within the city?
No. Basically what happens, and John, correct me because it's a little technical, there's two aspects of it. We get an allocation from the state of all the money that's spent in the state based upon our population. And that represents about 2/3 generally of the money we get in sales tax. 1/3 comes from purchases in the city. And I believe that's 1% and we get half of that, John? Or do we get the whole 1%? I can't remember.
No, you're right. So the money you talked about in both of those cases is 1% of that 7.85 that we all pay. The other 6.85 goes to the state. And then it's divided, like the mayor said, half of where the money was spent and half goes to the state pool and then is given back based on the population in the state.
So yeah, it does help to spend money in the city though. I don't want to in any way negate that, but that's how and it's usually about 1/3. I think it's been as high as 39%. And that's one of the things that I think we've got to watch. I'm not a projector, but our city is not growing as fast as some other cities like Washington County, Vineyard, Saratoga Springs. And so you hope they spend more money so we get our share, but as our percentage of population shrinks, we get a lesser percent of the allocation. The hope is that the allocation's higher because you got more people moving into the state. But we'll see. But it has, I think, the city's portion is a couple months has been as high as 39%, which is a little bit alarming, meaning that, the state allocation is shrinking a little bit. Okay. Public hearing's open. Anyone else like to comment, ask further questions before we amend the things as outlined?
Kevin Burns from North Ogden. I wonder if we can get some clarification or an explanation of what it means to double dip revenues.
Yeah. I think we can give that from an accountant standpoint, and Peter can, it was a miscalculation. It was counting, basically what we have is our money that we have in the city is invested in two spots.
Okay.
One, a year or so ago, we authorized the treasurer to invest approximately $5 million in longer term investments, as we thought interest rates would be going down. So we have $5 million that's managed by a group called Meter, which is administered through US Bank. So we have 5 million there. Then the majority of our money is in the state PTIF. And I think Peter, being new, when he looked at this, he didn't understand that Meter and US Bank were the same. And so interest was counted on both of those, but it was just one. So when he used the term double dip, it was miscalculation, thinking that we had more money invested than we did.
We counted the same money twice. Is that,
Yes,
that
investments
that
twice.
dumbed it down enough so I can understand it?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's the answer.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. It happens occasionally. It happens. But it was caught, taken care of, so. Anyone else like to comment this evening? All right, at this point in time, then I would look for a motion from the council to close the public hearing. We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Barker. Councilmember Pulver, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. At this point in time, then, I would be looking for action to approve ordinance 2025-15, which is adopting the proposed fiscal year 2024 budget amendments. That's ordinance 2025-16. 15.
15.
Do we have such a,
Yeah, and with those changes that I also gave to you as well. So that has to also be in the language for the ordinance, I believe. I think.
whatever you would like, Peter? We're a pretty accommodating
Right,
group.
John? It needs to be in there?
The budget amendments as discussed, or do we need to go through every budget amendment, John? Because there's a lot of budget amendments.
It was
There's
the,
two aspects. There's the one that was in the packet, and then there one passed out tonight.
yeah, it was the one as discussed, because these amended the one that was in the packet.
So John, how would you like the language?
So if you said,
I'm not going to say anything, but
if someone up here would say a motion to approve the ordinance, that number. that you said,
2025-15.
with the amendments as discussed by Peter Brown.
I'll give it a shot.
Okay, Councilmember Barker, give it a shot.
Motion to approve ordinance 2025-15, adopting the proposed fiscal year 2024-2025 budget with amendments as discussed by Peter Brown.
Okay,
Does that work?
good job. Thank you.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Dalpaz. Is there any further discussion on the budget amendments? All right, this will be a roll call vote. Since it's an ordinance, Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalpaz.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 5C. And this is an action to recess the city council meeting and convene in the redevelopment agency. So do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting and convene in the RDA?
Mayor, I move that we recess the city council meeting and convene in the redevelopment agency meeting.
Thank you, Councilmember Dalpaz.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Pulver. Any further questions or discussion? All right, all in favor of recessing the city council meeting and entering into the RDA agency meeting, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, we are now recessed and we are in the RDA meeting. And we will now look for a discussion by Peter Brown. I know on the agenda, I believe it says John was going to do that, but Peter will address us. This is regarding ordinance 2025-16, which would relate to adopting such budget. So,
Thank you. Oh, there we are. really what we're doing here with this budget, just for the public point of view, the RDA were funds set aside to do certain projects, certain types of capital projects in the city. And that was passed several years ago. We're still trying to spend down those revenues. There's no new revenue coming in for this. But we had certain projects, capital projects that were planned in the RDA. And when we initially put the budget together, we anticipated close to 1.5 million for the aquatic center, part of that project, and we're not going to get there this year. At least piece of it will. I have $300,000 that we think is gonna end our fiscal year 25, and so that's staying there. We pulled the rest of it out, and that's really the crux of the changes in that budget.
Okay, any questions for Peter?
Is there anything to show us, John, or to visualize, or is it
No.
pretty straightforward?
The only question I had was, did the interest go up that much from our original budget?
Sorry, I'm looking at the interest here.
The interest,
So the interest, part of the interest earnings, our PTIF,
oh, okay.
goes to gird that, and that hasn't been updated like the other interest revenue situation in the other budget. We just haven't updated it, so it looks like there's a huge
Gotcha.
difference there. But when it all fleshes out, it won't be that big.
Okay. But I guess my point there is that if we do, is that more money we need to quote allocate and or spend in the RDA stuff that we're doing? Is there a projection that we're going to get 50 grand a year or something? I don't know. I guess that's the question.
So you're correct that we will, and that'll be part of next year budget, which
Okay.
we'll actually have to come back with amendment because technically the RDA budget was adopted, but we will show how we will spend this account to zero,
Okay.
to comply with the state auditor's requirements.
Thank you, Member Pulver.
So
Members of the RDA, any other questions or comments?
How to the date is this? For example, I can't remember if we're spending any RDA towards the waterworks experience. Are we doing any RDA towards that? Okay.
Nope.
I was just trying to think. I know that that's wrapping up, and you could technically close the books on that because it ended before July 1st. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah. So the items that are on here that you'll see, the 300,000, the aquatic center is the SCADA upgrade and some of the pump work that we've started. But isn't, the rest of it isn't finished yet because we don't have the new playground, the new liners and those things because the season started. Bicentennial project didn't get underway. We thought we might have it done by June 30th, but we're starting in a couple of weeks, Dave. So it's just moving to next year. That's the 210. And then the 115 is the road widening at McDonald's, the turn lane, and that will start in 3 weeks. Sorry, it'll start on July 7th, 2 weeks, and be done in 3 weeks. And so it's those type of things that are going on, that just, they didn't happen. And most of the aquatic center, for example, it's because the vendors just couldn't deliver the equipment in time to get it installed before the season started. So they're just being delayed till we shut down in September.
Okay, members, any other questions from Peter or John?
I just noticed an error on here that I wanted to point out, or I think it's an error. The $222,000 transfer to capital improvement fund in the proposed amendment, I have it going to the general fund. That's not correct. It should be the capital fund. That's just
The capital projects.
Yeah.
It's just a subcategory.
so let's note that when you adopt it, make sure that we point out that it's supposed to be the capital fund. I'll have that fixed. That's it.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I would look for a board member to motion to adjourn the RDA meeting. I mean, to approve the ordinance, excuse me. We better do that before we adjourn the meeting. So I'd be looking for a motion to approve ordinance 2025-16, which is adopting the fiscal year 24-25 redevelopment agency board amendments as presented by Mr. Brown. Do we have such a motion?
Mayor, I move that we, as an RDA board, approve ordinance 2025-16, which is adopting the proposed fiscal year 2024-25 redevelopment agency budget amendment, with the addition to make sure that the $222,000 that it was shown in the budget is transferred to the capital fund as opposed to the general fund.
Thank you, Member
Second.
Dowd. Have a second by Member Pulver. Any further questions? Councilmember Barker.
Just a quick clarification. How come this one doesn't need a public hearing?
Typically we just do the same. It does need a public hearing.
Yeah, I was
You're
wondering
right.
the same thing, but it's not on the agenda.
It should be on the agenda. So I know that we did a public notice about the budgets. We just should have put it on the agenda. So we can hold the public hearing.
Because we posted it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then I would,
Thank you.
I was just looking at agenda items.
no,
Yeah.
it's, I
No,
was
that's
thinking the
me too.
same thing, but I thought, interesting. So, at this point in time, I would open a public hearing on the RDA budget and seek any comments online or those who are here in person. Okay, I don't see any. So I look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Member Pulver.
Second.
Thank you, Member Barker. Any further questions or concerns about closing the meeting? All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
All right, thank you. So at this point in time, then, I would look for a motion to approve ordinance 2025-16, adopting the budget as presented.
We've got that motion on,
Do we have to re-motion it since we?
Let's re-motion just
Okay.
since we
Think
got
we have
out of
to
order.
oh man, I did so good. I don't know if I can do it again.
We can do it.
Okay. Whew. As an RDA board member, I move that we approve ordinance 2025-16, which is adopting the proposed fiscal year 2024-2025 RDA budget amendment with the addition that we need to make sure that $222,000 is transferred into the capital fund as opposed to the general fund, which was shown on the sheet tonight.
Excellent, excellent. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Member Pulver. Any further discussions now? Any questions? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Member Pulver,
Yes.
Member Severing, I don't know if you want to abstain because you weren't here for the discussion or if you'd like to vote, feel free to, either way.
I would have liked to have heard the discussion, but let's go ahead. I think there's, those of you who can, there's a quorum, so we'll be okay.
Are you abstaining?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Member Barker,
Still yes.
Member Dalpaz.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Now I would look for a motion to adjourn the redevelopment agency and reconvene the city council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor then of adjourning the RDA meeting and reconvening the city council meeting, please say aye.
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 Okay, that motion passes unanimously. We'll now enter into item number 7. And this is a discussion or action to approve Resolution 11-2025, which is adopting the final certified tax rate and authorizing the city to proceed with a truth in taxation hearing. And John, I think you're going to lead that discussion.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Council, so this is kind of the follow-up from the discussion we've had the last couple of meetings about, do we want do you want to do a property tax increase? And if so, to what level? Last meeting, those who were in attendance had kind of talked about, as was shown in the staff report, doing a 5.5% sales tax increase, which would go from the 4.8 to the $5,064,000. A property tax increase of an additional $381,000 roughly to kind of cover the shortfall for CIP, and then to move forward with the transportation utility fee, generating about $1.2 million to go straight to roads under the state's new program. And so tonight, of these three numbers, the one that is the most important is what is the maximum amount of property tax the council would like to consider. That number will then be advertised and sent to our residents, letting them know that when there's a public hearing, which will be August 19th, how they can appear and make their voices heard and what the maximum rate would be. At that meeting in August, the council could do up to that much and no more. So the council could come in and say, we're not doing anything, or they could come in and say, we're doing this max number. The one number that I had put in here was kind of based on the conversation that the council had last week or 2 weeks ago about around that 15.5% generating. Really the focus is on this 360, 380 number. So we can talk about expenses in the budget. We can talk about anything, but the real thing we need to decide tonight is if we're moving forward with truth and taxation.
And to what degree we'll advertise.
Yeah. And
John, just to clarify, the 381 includes making the contribution to capital projects. Is that correct?
correct. So this is designed so that there's a contribution to capital projects and
The whole 300?
for 300, and then the 80 something.
I don't know. It says 271 on mine.
I think that's the number I saw.
Let's see, is that last year's?
No,
I
that's
think last year's was 279.
anyway.
Okay, so yeah, it's 279. It's not 300.
So
And so but that's kind of the numbers that we need the council to talk about is how much revenue do you want to generate from property tax? What we had originally budgeted was about 100,000 in the property tax increase, with an additional $68,000 that was from growth. So that's from the new homes and new businesses that have been constructed in the city over the last year. So we really need to talk about, technically we could not do any property tax increase and just adopt a budget. But we do need to just decide what the path forward is so that we can set that hearing in August if you'd like to.
And there's no use of fund balance in this one. Just want to clarify.
Correct. In this budget, we had backed it out, so there's no use of fund balance. It would just, the rainy day fund is untouched.
And just to make sure I'm
Go
very,
ahead, council member with Alpad.
yeah, because I just wanted to jump right in, sorry. The 381,000 that's shown on the screen here should be 279,000. I just need to make sure I understand that. What were you saying, Councilman Pulver? That was,
The thing that's going into CIP is 271. And the rest of the increase is based on, we had to put 100 grand back in the sidewalks that was taken out. And then also there was a couple other things. What was it? The insurance went up, and I think there was something else that was in there too. But
okay, so you're saying that the difference between the CIP on the budget that we were looking at last time is about $19,000, right? Or $29,000.
no, it was zero last time.
Because I thought that we were going to put $300,000 into CIP in the
It was
discussion.
zero at the time.
Yeah,
I mean,
zero at the time.
you're right. The discussions were focused on, we need to put something in there, but it wasn't shown in the budget yet. And so to make it appear in the budget as shown in your packet, it was done by increasing property tax, this 15.5%, and increasing sales tax, the 5.5%, because that sales tax is essentially what is eliminating the need for the use of fund balance.
Yeah, because that was the other part, was the eliminating the fund balance. So there's two ways to do it. You would, the sales tax increasing kind of covered some things, and then the other, the covering the fund balance was basically what we were increasing the property tax for as well.
Yeah, I know Councilmember Pulver and myself disagree on sales tax. Personally, I think 5.5% is aggressive. I would be very surprised if we get that. It'd be nice if we did, but I'd be surprised in kind of trending and all the information you hear, but who knows? But the reason I'm not adverse to that is because I'm more adverse to the fact that we do a budget, which I call the federal budget, which is budgeting for expenses in excess of revenues. I don't like that. I think it creates a safety net. Frankly, if sales tax doesn't come in, I think the council should be addressing the expense side. They should have some thresholds of if it's not hitting this number, then we need to step back and look at expenses. But once you budget that use of the general fund, as I've said, if there's money there that's budgeted, it'll be spent, right? And that kind of creates, in my mind, an artificial safety net. But as Councilmember Barker likes me to say, that's your call.
It might be your call tonight too.
It could be. So what questions do you have for John? How do you want to proceed? As John mentioned, if you said 15.51%, doesn't mean you have to do it, but it will create a lot of energy in the city when you consider that. The increases in water, sewer, garbage fees, and a transportation utility fee. It all comes out of the same wallet, as I've said many times. So what John is looking for is what we advertise. I believe I've heard that we're definitely proceeding with a truth in taxation hearing. He just needs to know the number you want to put in there to send to the county. Councilmember Pulver.
I did have one other one, and I thought I had resolved it in my brain, but now that I'm looking at it again, I'm not making sense of it. Is after the expense line and revenue line are totaled, we get a positive number at the end. So it's got a net total general fund of a positive 143 and 522. So I just didn't know is that something else? Because the numbers didn't seem to quite fit my brain, but I just kind of rolled with it.
It should be a break-even number.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So this column here.
Yeah.
That says 0.
What's the difference? Sorry, that's why.
Yeah, this
just
is
my head. Okay,
that's the change. So
it resolved it.
Yeah.
I knew I had.
Who's doing those inspections on the rockets?
Just if you do it too many times, then you start seeing things.
well, and it makes sense because the farthest right column
Gotta-
makes you feel like it's the total, and
Yeah.
on ours it's the second to the right.
So, Council, would you like to have a discussion on where we proceed? I was hoping, frankly, that this year's budget, we'd come in with expenses under and be able to use that to supplement I still believe we might have some, but as I said before, I'm against putting nothing in there because you start setting a okay precedent. But, do you need the whole 279 or what do you need? But anyway, what questions may you have of John in regards to this resolution on the certified tax rate? Councilmember Severing?
Well, I just, it's kind of one of these, the thing I've learned every year being on the council is there's always this give and take, right? There's an opportunity cost. We talked last time about, we don't want to lose that 300,000 because it'll never go back, right?
Let's just steal
Potential.
it from something else.
I know, and I don't like the uncertainty, but there's just uncertainty enough in the economy, but I'd like to have something a little bit more solid there so that's kind of where I'm leaning is you either do one and you make people upset, or you make people upset because we don't have the $300,000 in there for CIP. So Love to see the park, love to see more money toward Barker Park. We're just not going to get there unless we make the sacrifices.
Okay, what other comments or quick? Councilmember Barker?
I'm not totally in that opinion. This year we're asking a lot of our residents by going with the transportation utility fee, which by saying it's a fee, it's still a tax. So if we add that to our percentage, would be in almost a 45 to 50% tax rate, which I know by the fee is now we're at 15%. I'm more in favor of half of that, like 7.88%, where it's the 1410 number, and then cut the capital improvement fund in half for this year. We're generating a lot of revenue. And as it was discussed last meeting when I wasn't here, our roads are still considered capital improvements, even though we're going to spend it before it sits in the account. So we are generating lots of money for capital improvements. It's just not going to sit there.
But we're not generating it for the identified 5-year capital
Correct.
projects.
We're
They'll be
generating
deferred.
it for now.
They'll be deferred because it's money spent on the roads and we've identified things other than the roads. But it is quite a burden, frankly. And I know last night the sewer board increased taxes 13%. So our residents will see that on their bill, in addition to a 6% service fee increase. I don't know what the fire district is proposing.
Right around 7.
Right around how much?
7.
So it's, it starts piling on, but is that a?
That's, yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Pulver.
Yeah, and I kind of agreeing with Councilman Barker, but at the same time, we have to pick a number. We can't go that, has the maximum one. And I think that's what I'm hopefully will get to is that 7. But I don't know if I want to put my hat that's the number that we're going to do, or that's the max number that we're going to do. I guess that's my point. So I'd rather have a little bit of buffer, and we have explanation of why the buffer is there. And if we decide to not do that, we can still do that.
Yeah, the
Councilmember Dalpez.
elephant in the room is that we just approved the amendments to last year's budget, and we decreased the amount of sales tax.
Well, we put it back to where it was.
Well, what I'm trying to say is we kind of reduced it down from what we thought it would be. I think no.
No, it was 4.8 when we originally did it. So then
But it feels like it was reduced because I could be wrong, but it feels like part of the reason that it was reduced potentially was because we saw a 1-month blip that sales tax dipped by $80,000. I'm not saying it's responsible for that full amount, but it's just the feeling that I have. So I think the 5.5% increase in sales tax that we're projecting for next year, it's definitely aggressive. It feels like it needs to be, I think we're okay to project some sales tax increase, but it seems like maybe that 5.5%, given some more information that we've received since the last meeting and kind of it's just some more time that I've had to think about it, maybe that 5.5% needs to go down to like I'm just picking 4% out of somewhere. So maybe,
but then you're taking CIP to 0, essentially.
Yeah, well,
if you take the 7% that Ryan is saying, and then you do that, then you're talking CIP of 0.
yeah,
Because
I know.
unless you want to take out of.
Yeah, I know it's a difficult discussion and decision, but I'm just worried that the reality won't be that we have 5.5% sales tax increase next year. And so I'd rather predict that it's not going to happen now than being here a year from now potentially and saying, oh, we should have. It's a difficult decision. I don't know. I'm curious what everyone's thoughts are on that. I know we have to make up the revenue somewhere, but I'm just really worried about that 5.5% number as well.
We're not making it up. It's an estimation based on real data from the past. So it's not like, I mean, we're not pulling numbers out of the hat per se. I mean, it's just, I think we're probably being aggressive by maybe 0.5%, maybe 1%, looking at all the data from years past. But in all honesty, you know, with all the other expenses that we've been able to suck into most years, you know, I don't want to increase taxes, property taxes, just to, you know, make up that gap. I'd rather overestimate, and I'll say that out loud, the revenue for sales tax and then suck that in, then already have property taxes up that you can't undo. Well, you can, but it takes another year, then you can undo it. But that to me doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the mayor was talking about.
Okay. What if the CIP is reduced from 300 to say 150? Can we get a real world example of what that does to us in the next few years? I don't know if John or David can throw out, hey, if we receive $150,000 less in our CIP this year, this is the potential impact of what project will not be completed. I know it might not be easy to pull that out, but can you at least, what do you think, John?
I'm trying to grab our CIP sheet.
There's nothing that's not going to be done this year. It's just the fact that you're not going to have, how are you going to make up the 150 next year? I think that's the point that someone keeps making, and he's smiling, is the fact that once you not do that, then you somehow have to come pull out 150 the next year. So at least we get close. I think I'm more comfortable with 271 than I am with 150 or 0.
I think also there's, and I like Peter's conservative nature, but I wouldn't be surprised if we come in with 75,000 or 100,000 excess revenues. It's all dependent on sales tax. But it wouldn't surprise me. So that would fall into CIP, but we won't know that till we get that final sales tax number, really. We'll have the expenses nailed down here in the next 4 or 5 weeks, but we won't have that final sales tax number. But if, you know, we came in at 50 or 100,000 over, that would go into CIP, which would supplement the 150 or whatever or 200, whatever you're talking about. But we just don't know that. We will before we get the final budget, right?
See, and then you could take, if you know that, and that, you know, you're going to know that mid or 22nd of August. That way, you know, you've already done your tooth of taxation. However, you know that your revenues or your sales taxes, you can take your little estimate and suck it down. And that's probably what it is for the rest of the year.
When do we have to have the final budget, John? Again, September 1?
Yeah, it's due on
Okay.
September 1.
So you would know.
So we would know because we'll have the truth and taxation hearing, then we'll hear what suggestions residents have, then we'll have a period of time before we do the final budget. So there's always that option. Yes, Councilmember Severing.
I'm kind of curious if we call upon Peter for a minute. Peter, I know you're not really familiar completely with North Ogden's finances over the years, but I mean, is 5.5% on a sales tax, is that unreasonable? Is that cloud dreams? I mean, you're in the numbers every day and have been so for many, many years.
I am, and I look at sales taxes down where I came from as well. My challenge with it is we live in a volatile time. You've seen that graph where it just kind of goes up and down and up and down. If you look at last several years, the volatility isn't there as much. And so whenever you're dealing with volatility, that seems a little aggressive for me. If it was up to me, I'd probably pull back from that. That's my opinion.
Okay, sorry to put you on the spot,
Okay.
but I'd like to have another perspective as well, so.
The ramifications, if you pull back on that, and as I've said, I think it's aggressive myself. This is one time that I hope Councilmember Pulver proves me wrong, because it would be nice, but it is aggressive.
Wouldn't be the first time.
I know, but I'm not a rocket scientist, so I'm just an accountant. But your alternative is then you either take money out of fund balance or you increase property taxes more. My feeling is if as a council, I would say, okay, if we go with the 5.5% come October, if we're not at this threshold, we're going to look at expenses and start making some reductions. I just am strongly against budgeting expenses over revenues and relying on fund balance. That is there for not when it's cloudy, but when it starts raining. So those are the options. I mean, I do believe it's aggressive. But at least you have a chance to make the adjustments. You can always adjust general fund if you want, but I just found once it's budgeted, once it's there, it's as well as spent.
But we still have until the end of August. And we will know all the numbers by then. So
We will see the trend. Mr. Call?
I was gonna say, we will have May's number. We may not have June's because typically it comes out on the 22nd of the month. So it'll come out 3 days after our public hearing.
right, but we still have until
Yeah, but that's okay. We still have till September 1st to final budget, right?
Yeah.
So all we're talking about is here's the max we'll do, and then we'll rely on that information to make a final decision. So council, what would you like to have, John? Do you want to advertise the maximum of 15.51, or do you want to? Doesn't mean you have to do that, but it will create a lot of energy. Maybe people will show up and have some good ideas.
I think it's the safest to advertise the maximum that we have here with the full intentions to do whatever we can to get it down from that based off of incoming data that comes, more sales tax numbers and hopefully some other things that we can look at. But to me, it seems like that max number might be what we advertise and we work to try to get it down from that. I hate to say it. I do.
Okay, so John, no, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. You raise your hand first.
Well, I was just,
Councilmember Severin, go ahead.
yeah, thank you, Mayor. I was just going to say, I think I'm trying to remember, I don't think there's been a year where we've not advertised a little bit higher as a ceiling, but weren't able to come down a little bit. And that'll give us the opportunity to be able to see the additional data, right? So I think I'm in favor of the 15% as well, knowing that we've got additional data still coming in and that we can adjust that lower if necessary.
Okay. Councilmember Barker, you had a comment.
I'm still this is my own personal belief. And I think last year I missed our truth and taxation hearing when I was back east to school, but we advertised 9.5 and I think we voted on 9.5. And so if you advertise high, there's a good chance you're going to vote high. And I am not in favor of advertising high. I don't like the optics of we're going to advertise this high rate, knowing that we're going to come down, because then it just seems like we're playing a game.
Yeah, I'm not sure we know we're going to come down. That's the problem.
In my opinion is I think that's still too high for me, but.
I totally agree. Not one of us up here wants to raise taxes, right? But at least we'll have some additional data. And it hasn't shut down the idea of getting up to 15. I mean, I would much rather be not raising any taxes, but I also don't want to feel like we're delinquent when we have to say, well, sorry, we've got to do a little less this year because we didn't plan well.
But I think to sum it up, we want to have something in the CIP by the end of the year. If it's what was left over from last year, great. Then we can kind of adjust as needed. Second thing was making sure we had the sidewalk plan in there, which is in there. And then also making sure that all of the employees were taken care of. And then what was the other one? Oh, that the insurance thing was covered. And so really that's it. I think the biggest thing is how we do that is, I don't say it's kind of a juggling game, but it sort of is, because we know what our expenses are. Now we just have to figure out how do we want to not raise property taxes for all, because we could do that. Because if you look at the property tax leg, it is pretty low. But that's not the point. The point is that you want to adjust it as needed. And technically, still right now, any property tax increase goes to public safety. So in that vein, we have to make sure that we remember that, I guess. But
I'm still of the opinion, and I could be wrong, if we hit our sales tax number of 4.8 million, we will come in 100,000. That's my call. After reviewing things with Peter, and I know he's conservative, which I really like, but it would not surprise me.
and that would be the one thing I would lower. I wouldn't lower the sales tax. I would lower the property tax. And then you can still play with the numbers late on, as you said, as you go through the year. And I think that's a good way to drive down any expenses if you have a goal to work on. So
And you should have triggers set in place. If
Correct.
it doesn't hit this number, here's what we're going to do. Plan A, Plan B. And I know John has asked each department to have a Plan A and Plan B, 5% cut in A and 10% cut in B. Okay, so I'm looking for a motion, unless there's any further discussion.
Just
Councilmember Dalpass?
Just one more thing that I keep thinking about. And we can't tackle this tonight, but the idea that we were thinking about taking from the rainy day fund this year. And as you listened to last week's meeting, we came to the conclusion that we're no longer considering that. We really need to, maybe in a work session or sometime soon, we need to come up with actual events that qualify for rainy day fund. You know, whether that be, I don't know. So flooding, that's a rainy day fund. Maybe there's a big flood that comes through and we have extra expenses. And so we say that item qualifies. Emergency road repair or something qualifies. Just a list of items that you can't ever go outside of that list of items, because I felt like the way that we were using it up until last week was not very clear. And so that's just something I wanted to add. I don't have the solution, but I would like to discuss it with the council in the future to say, here's a list of things that would only qualify as a rainy day event.
You can put a bond call on there.
Yeah. Yeah, if our bond was called for the public safety building, that seems like a very reasonable thing that we could have as a qualifying item.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes hard to identify specific things, but there ought to be some parameters on what qualifies, what's the definition of an emergency use, or because you do kind of lock yourself in sometimes, but you could surely use it as examples, to your point.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Who would like to make a motion to approve Resolution 11-2025, adopting the final certified tax rate? And that's based upon what you want to do with property taxes. I think John has got a table that shows what the certified tax rate would be based upon certain increases. So who would like to make a motion on the advertised rate? So John, do you have, there's like 15.53, just using as an example, the certified tax rate would then be 0.00510, is that correct?
1510, yeah.
1510, and if it's 7.5%?
Closest one right now would be 0.001410. So somewhere between these two.
So what would, I look for a motion to solidify the certified tax rate, authorizing the city to proceed with that truth in taxation and advertising that and submitting it to the county. Anyone like to make a motion?
Mayor, I motion that we pick the proposed rate of 001510 for our truth and taxation hearing.
Okay, we have a motion made by Councilmember Pulver to advertise the rate at 001510. Of course, with a decimal point in front of that. Do we have a second to Councilmember Pulver's motion?
Second.
We have a second by Council Member Dowpaz. Do we have further discussion to consider before we take a roll call vote on this? All right, the motion has been made. There's no further discussion. We'll start with you, Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
Councilmember Severing,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker,
No.
Councilmember Dowpaz.
Yes.
Motion passes on a 3-1 vote. John, you'll take care of that, make sure we get it to the county.
Yep.
Okay, I think the next thing we're going to talk about is the fireworks boundary, if I remember correctly, and that'll be by our council member and our fire marshal, Mr. Ryan Barker. So if you'd like to proceed with that, this is related to ordinance 2025-17.
All right, so I was speaking with our city manager, John, last week, and I was under the impression that our ordinance was always in perpetuity, but apparently it's not. So this is our map we've adopted as a fire district, and we've adopted it as a city council. I think it was 3 years ago. It's a map we've already sent down to the state. The state fire marshals have it. All the news, our websites have it. We just need to adopt it as this is our boundary where fireworks are restricted. Good or bad, we're going to change the map this year because there's a new House bill coming into effect. I think it's House Bill 48, which is the wildland urban interface. And so now we're going to make our map more tied to data with the urban interface. But as of right now, this is the bill or our map. And the reason it jogs down on the south end of our city is Ogden City's boundary is Monroe. And so we were trying to tie up with them. So it's just one continuous boundary through all our areas.
Okay, thank you, Fire Marshal and Councilmember Barker. Do you have any questions for Ryan?
This is the same one that we've used forever.
Well,
Well,
yes.
Yes and no.
Ish. We've added more to the east. That's why it went kind of jogged down Fruitland Drive and up 2600. It used to go from Mountain Road up and around, but we added more.
So people, there's going to be some.
What's that?
There's going to be some mad people, is what you're saying.
There always is.
Okay.
Okay.
There will be some violators. And I think this is a map we've had for the past 3 years.
Yes.
Prior to that, it was Mountain Road was the boundary as opposed
Okay.
to Fruitland.
All right.
What is the fine for a violation?
That's a police. We don't, yeah.
Thank you.
That's
Out of 1 million.
save our budget.
And,
Although, yeah, I want to do that before I'm out. I got to issue a pardon somewhere.
You'll know the answer to that question by the 4th of July.
Yeah.
the real issue is, oh, time to go home. To actually catch somebody shooting fireworks and find them, you have to actually watch them light them off. You can't just see them go up and then see that they were standing there. So it's very difficult to catch people shooting fireworks.
Well, hopefully, and we'll publish this. We'll publish this map, John,
Yes.
so people know.
Yeah, we'll publish the map. We'll put it on Facebook. And then this will be the map until there's another one that comes along.
Okay,
That's the magic sound you want to hear, that
Okay.
motor turning.
we're good. Any other questions for Mr. Barker?
So the Mountain Road to Monroe, is that a new part this year, or has that been here for 3 years?
Been there for 3 years.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, I would seek a motion then regarding ordinance 2025-17, which is adopting the fireworks boundary map as presented by Councilmember Barker. Do you have a motion?
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 2025-17, adopting the fireworks boundary map.
Thank you, Councilmember Severing. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Pulver. Any further questions or discussion? Once again, this is ordinance 2025-17. We'll start on our roll call vote then with Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
Councilmember Severing.
Yes.
Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
And Councilmember Dalpass.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We'll now move on to item number 9. In your packet was the proposed contract for our city manager and attorney. This is a contract that's been in place for a number of years. I think it was modified, 4 years ago. I think it's approved every 2 years, but the major modifications, I think, were 4 years ago. It was approved 2 years. The only change this year is that we have inserted, thank you, John, for bringing that up. We have inserted the new salary, which is based upon our salary survey. So what that has to do with is if we were to reduce Mr. Call's salary below that amount, then it would trigger the contract to be in place. It'd be an in-substance termination, so to speak. So that is the one amendment that was made from 2 years ago. It's just upgrading the salary level for John. The other thing is John is engaged in some outside activities. Once he helps his father, I think, with the Land Use Institute. He does some work there. And now he's got into golf simulators. Him and a friend of his are going to do that. So it allows him to participate in those outside activities as long as he's performing his duty here in the city. If he got carried away with that, then we do have the option there. Nothing else, I believe, has changed in the contract. Let me just say, because there has been some comments I've received today, even though John's title is city manager and attorney, his salary is simply based upon city manager salary information. And this complies with the 50th percentile, just like with any other employee, as we do the study. So we're staying within our policy there. But those are the two changes. I don't know what other questions you may have. When this contract was originally put together and modified, it was based upon pretty much what's available to other city managers. City managers have a contract for several reasons, in my opinion. One is it's a political appointment, right? So if you get a council that dislikes the individual, they have the right to terminate. It used to be, I think the mayor could terminate, John. That's one amendment we made 2 years ago to say, hey, no one individual should have that. That needs to be a council situation. So we modified that, I believe, 2 years ago, that the entire council would be involved. But it is a political appointment. And I only think it's fair if it was any of you that were subject to that and it was at the whim of people, whether they like you or not, you'd want some protection. I think additionally, even though John's mantra, the city managers are really not supposed to make recommendations on actions by the council, I believe that sometimes you need to call upon the city manager. And this allows the city manager to, be forthright and honest in their approach and not have the fear of offending, a city council. So that's, in my opinion, the reason that a lot of city managers have contracts. I don't think it's unusual. We're not doing anything outlandish. We're not paying an outlandish salary. We are smart enough to do our homework. And I think we've done it on this. So in that regard, I would look for a motion to approve. First of all, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If you don't, then I would look for a motion to approve the 2-year city manager attorney contract as outlined in your packet. Councilmember Dalpass.
I just had a comment. I saw a news article today that pointed out that, and this is just to give an idea, Because somebody might look at the salary and say, wow, that's pretty hefty, or they might, they might comment. $100,000 salary in 2020 essentially has the buying power of $125,000. So, the $100,000, you used to say if someone got into that $100,000 range, that they're doing really well. More and more, it's not as much feeling that way. And so I just wanted to point that out. It's just a quick little thought.
And just to put it in perspective, I believe the city manager in South Ogden, which has a lesser population we do, is 189,000. And Riverdale, I think, is over 200 or approximately 200. I believe this is 166. So yeah, I mean, people can look at that and say it's a lot of money, but our policy is we pay market salaries, and it's based upon a survey, and that's what's in this. So, I just want the public to know that we have done our homework on this. This isn't unusual. And I think the council's done their due diligence. So with that, do we have a motion or do we have further questions? Councilmember Barker.
I can make a motion to approve the 2-year city manager contract with John Call.
Second.
Okay, second by Councilmember Pulver, motion by Councilmember Barker. Any further discussion or questions? Once again, this will be a roll call vote since it is contractual. Councilmember Pulver.
Yes.
Councilmember Severing.
Yes.
Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
And Councilmember Dalpaz.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously also. We will now enter into our council department reports. I'll start with the finance report. I guess Peter departed. But I spent a couple hours this morning with John and Peter. We went through all the line items. I think that there's no expenses I saw that were out of line as we went through there based upon 11 months. It is somewhat difficult. There have been some allocations that are just what I would call intercompany or intercity with, like the funds for repairs of the cars and things of that nature that is intercompany. I think Peter's gone through and we talked about a lot of different line items and looked at so I think expenses, I still believe they will come in under budget, I believe. The only unknown really, I think, is sales tax, what that's going to come in at. And even if it comes in at 4.8 million, which who knows, I think we will have some excess. John, if you could pull up the sales tax number. We did, by the way, look at the aquatic center. June is a pretty good month. I think at this point in time, we were estimating through 11 months as $134,000 negative balance, as I recall, John. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
We're planning on having a good June because of the heat, but I still think we'll be probably negative the 40, 50,000 in that. You can see our sales tax. We projected, I think we budgeted 417,000. It came in at 345. You can see that that's according to John's calculation, using the attorney method of math, it's a negative 17.45% decrease. I can't remember, frankly, in the 5 years I've been here, is this month to month. I mean, I don't understand it, but you can see why Peter's kind of a little bit conservative on his trend. If you start looking at that now, we've had just about as many months of decrease as we've had in increase. John, could you drop down to the
Peter Brown has raised his hand, just so you know.
Oh, Peter Brown has raised his hand.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear from Peter Brown's hand. Peter?
Hi, sorry. I had to go back to the office. I needed to plug my computer in to keep doing some things. So I'm joining remotely. So if you have any questions or you want to ask me anything, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. John, back to the graph. I think it's down one. What percent came from the city versus the state this year, John? That's what I was looking for.
So 40% for April was city money. And it typically, as the mayor mentioned earlier, is in this 30 to 32, 33%. So we're getting less money from the state, more money from ourselves.
Which is good. People are spending money here. But, you know, the trend is kind of leveling off. We'll see what the next couple months bring. But I did spend good quality time, and I'm appreciative of John and Peter spending that time going through. We looked at where the revenues were. Was there anything based upon the last 11 months? If month 12 performs at that level, that would be unusual. And I think the expenses, I still believe, are going to come in low, below budget, which is good. And we'll see what the revenues do. But I think overall, we talked about the cash balances we have in general fund and in all the funds. And I know Peter is working on a few things to make sure interest income gets properly booked. But at this point in time, I think this may be one of the closest budgets that we've come in a number of years. I don't anticipate massive excess, but I'm pretty confident we'll come in at 100,000 revenues in excess. So, any questions on the finances? Okay, we'll move on now to Councilmember Pulver. Do you have anything substantially you'd like to report on Public Works?
Well, I think everybody's seen most of the public works, especially on 1700. And then not necessarily public works, but Pine View making havoc, creating havoc everywhere. I'm not sure why they can't understand. Well, I guess they don't know it breaks until they turn it on. But and then also the turn lane, everybody's been having fun with that. But I guess that was capital project. Sorry. And I guess Waterworks is yours too. I'll stop talking then. Dave, did you have anything else that you wanted to bring up? Okay. So yeah, it's a lot of work is being done, and I think the 1700 project is going to be, kind of I don't know. It's going to create a lot of better things down there, and also when you have the road, and I think we're going to do better on the sidewalks down there too, which is kind of a key thing for a lot of folks that live down there.
Yeah, I think one of the questions with residents I've had discussions with is, pothole filling, how we're going to progress in that, where we are on the list, and, particularly on 2600. They call it the racetrack, so to speak, because they're in and out. But I think it would be good at some point in time to kind of outline when our major pothole filling will ramp up. I know we sometimes in line waiting for a third party to do some of the major stuff, but I think that would be good to kind of give residents an idea of when we'll be doing, quote, road repairs. So we could get that information. Councilmember Pulver working with Dave would be good. Councilmember Watson is not with us tonight. I don't know if she sent administration and recreation departments.
I'd probably just, she didn't send it, but, talking about the aquatic center, typically their June numbers are around 400 or 500 is the average, and they've been in the 700s is the average. Obviously this last week was colder, probably not as good, but the first part of the month, it was baking out there.
Yeah.
So.
And that just reminded me, one of the other uncertainties, because as I was looking at the revenues in the recreation department, it seemed to be a little unusually low. And John has indicated that football is a big revenue generator, and that starts up and will be generating revenue.
Yeah, they sign up in June to start playing in September,
Yeah, they
August.
start practicing in July, so
Yeah.
we're hoping that that will come in line. Okay. Mr. Call, would you like to update us anything particular on capital projects?
Yes. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., we are cutting the ribbon for the Waterworks experience. People will ask you why we didn't put bathrooms in over there. There is a well there, and you cannot put a sewer line within a certain distance of a wellhead, as you can expect. So that's why there's not bathrooms there. But it is close in proximity to the trails and the commercial areas. So there is stuff around for people to go buy a donut at Lee's and use their restrooms. I feel like you always should buy something if you're going to use the restroom. But that's going to be a fun thing. Those of you who can come, please come. If you're on the council and going to be there, we may give you the opportunity to speak. I know Chris is semi-volunteered. He'd be happy to hand it off to somebody else, but we just appreciate those coming, and it's going to be a fun event. I know my wife has been sent the invitation by like 4 different people from different friend groups, so it's going to be a lot of people.
Everybody's calling that the splash pad, Nike.
They're calling it a splash pad.
It's not.
It is more like a water table where the water's about chest height and they can play in the water and dam it up and move things around. It's actually kind of a workout facility too, because to get the water to the top, they have to pump it or use an Archimedes screw to get it up there. It's fun. So, the turn lane starts on July 7th. So, the actual asphalting and tearing everything up and moving it will start on July 7th. And those are the big projects. Everything else is finished. I looked down at my list of 16 things we've been tracking, and so many of them are done or finished. Other than we will this next year, fiscal year, start putting in the playground at Mountain View Park. So that's on the calendar for next year. And then after that is Oaklawn. And then I think the last one we have to finish up is the Barker Park, which is kind of a smaller playground. But that will get us all caught up, which 6-7 years ago, we were 10 playgrounds behind, and now we're only 3 behind on timing. And so we're really excited to be caught up, and that will also help with our capital project timing, because that'll free up some money every year for other things, or maybe a reduction in the burden on our residents. So,
John, have we heard anything from Representative Moore's office on money to move the?
just that they called back and specifically requested we give them our SAM number, which is the number that how federal grants are tracked. So that was a good sign. They needed that information to submit it. And we did ask for the full $3 million earmark, and we'll see if it goes through. It'll be October before we'd hear when the budget's approved at the national level.
Okay. And council, there will need to be a discussion in regards to transportation impact fee. The way they've been calculated, John is doing a survey to see where we stand in regards to other cities. He told me today that he believes we're probably one of the higher cities, and so that could have some impact on the development that's taking place. So we need to just have a discussion on that, where we stand and how we're going to deal.
And if
that.
it's transferable, I think was another question.
Well, the fact is, if it's moving from one building to the other and the other building went away, it would be transferable. But if the other building stays there,
All right.
but this development, most of the traffic comes off of UDOT Road, right? Off 2700. So actually, some of our fees, frankly, are so high, having been on the other side of this, it would kill some major projects that could be scheduled for that area. The other question, John, is I think we did allocate $200,000 for a study on the pond to get the design done.
Barker Park.
The moving the retention basin so that we could move quickly when we're ready to move, if he produces some signed leases with some major retail.
Yep. yeah, we're comfortable that we could get it designed and moved in 8 or 9 months, which is about the lead up time they'd probably take to get things going for any of the leases they were working on. So,
All right. Anything else, council, you've heard from citizens you'd like to bring up at this point in time? If not, we'll move on to public comments. Okay, now those who are here, based upon the information garnered tonight, if you'd like to comment, now would be the time to make a public comment. Same rules apply as we talked earlier. And John, if you would watch online, I'd appreciate it.
Reed Miller, North Ogden. I don't know how to really express it, but there's a lot of people just don't know what's happening within the city. They just know that when they hear the announcement of, oh, we're going to have a increase of 15% for the property taxes, they're going to go wild. They don't understand what the council members have to put together. But I'll tell you, if you want to make the citizens mad, you go with that 15%. Pulver, Severin, and Del Paz, and the whole city will go nuts. They don't understand the thing. All they see is the 15%. The other thing is when I have to, they'll say, when I have to cut, or when I don't have money, then I have to cut. Now, why doesn't the city, when they don't have money, have to cut? And the third thing is on taxes, any taxes. It's like taking money out of your pocket for the citizens. You know, you see what the city wants to do. I mean, we see it by coming here, but they don't see it. They see the thousands of dollars coming out of their pocket. And in reality, you're the ones that are spending their money. So therefore, it's a real tender thing. And so it's so important to keep those taxes down, even though the city has to sacrifice a little bit. So, and I know that this truth in taxation is boy, when the citizens hear that, hey, they say, okay, these people on the council, every time there's a truth and every time there's a proposal for the tax increase, they go for it. And so it doesn't make too many people happy. So be aware and do what you can to keep that figure down. We pray that, you know, our sales tax revenue will be adequate for everything. But once again, the citizens, general citizens don't understand. So if they hear the big one, you know, 15%, if they heard something lower, hey, let me tell you, they would be a little bit better off.
So Reed, maybe you could head up buy in North Ogden deal.
As much as I can.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. Mona Wald, North Ogden. I just wanted to express and share some of the sentiments of this gentleman that he has discussed tonight. With all due respect, Mayor Berube, I feel like you speak of raising taxes as if you were ordering a side of fries at McDonald's. And the only
Thanks.
thing that creates energy is a Happy Meal. Honestly, raising taxes does not create energy, and I'm talking to plenty of people that are pretty upset about the continuous rise in taxes and utility fees, and it's spoken so callously here. I feel like you need to continue to search other sources of funding. I thank you for saying no and voting no to that. It's election year, and that's to be expected too, but I will defend you and your decision on that, definitely. I think we need to take a step back and consider the average citizen who's struggling, paying their daily lives and just trying to get by. All right. So all this talk of raising taxes and fees as if it were just easy is not. It's not easy. And so I will be happy to campaign on that. Okay. Thank you.
Perfect. Mona, let me just say if you had regularly attended meetings, you would know that this mayor is very cognizant of those. And I don't consider taxes like French fries. When I said this will create a lot of energy, when people see a 15% increase, they'll be here. So I'm a little offended about your comments. I think if you regularly attended here, you would know that my approach is a little bit different, and I don't treat it like French fries. So, well, it's a bit different. Well, I respect your opinion, but I disagree.
Mayor, I just had one comment on that as well.
Yeah.
The budget committee has gone through so many hours, and if you had listened to any of those, you would have understood exactly where the money goes. So if you want to do some digging, go back and look at every single budget committee on YouTube, and then come talk to us. Thank you.
Yeah, it's easy when you're campaigning to say there's no need for taxes. But the reality is the council has put in a lot of work. Councilmember Pulver, we actually created 3 years ago a budget committee for them to look through it. And when it comes to taxing, it's easy to use that as a campaign slogan.
I hope that
Mr. Swanson, would you like to comment?
Sure. Phil Swanson, North Ogden resident, council in the dozen or so years that I've been involved with budgeting in this city. I don't envy where you sit tonight. This year's budget is probably the most difficult that I've seen in the last 10 to 12 years, with the needs of the city and the lack of revenue that's coming in. It's I don't envy where you're sitting. I appreciate how difficult it can be for you to try to balance the budget without cutting the services that our residents rely on and that we expect as residents. But that's basically where we are, is you can make significant cuts. But then we have to ask ourselves, how much snow plowing do we want? We can cut back on that. We can cut back on no overtime. There's a lot of things that we can do that would cut back, but then you know that this room would be filled with people who are upset because the roads didn't get plowed, because the parks aren't being mowed. It's hard to provide the services that are expected of a city to provide to its residents, and expect that financially the city can eat the inflation that comes every year. You'll remember that just a couple of years ago during COVID, the municipal inflation rate was in the low double digits, 12, 13%, where the average family was seeing a 9.1% inflationary cost rise. Cities were seeing a 12 and 13% cost rise. For those that have attended the budget meetings and the Citizen Budget Committee over the last 3 years, you're aware of all of the positions that have not been filled, the cuts that have been made by the city, and the sacrifices that have been made by the departments, that they're doing pretty good to continue to provide the level of service that we expect here in North Ogden, with an ever tightening budget. So my hat's off to you guys. I really appreciated the conversation that you had tonight. I don't envy the decision you're having to make. I was grateful to hear all of you agree that you're going to work really hard to not come in at that 15.51%, and whether it's 7% or 8% or 9%, any reduction in that will be wonderful and appreciated by the residents. But I know the residents I'm talking to still have high expectations for what the city provides, and appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just make this comment. Some mayors may disagree with this. I know one of our adjoining citizens. I fully support our police department. That is our number one job, is public safety. And when you look into our budget, you'll see that that's the majority of the budget. And I could have been wrong, but if Mona's listening to all these meetings, she'll know last year I told the council, you don't need to raise taxes that much. Now, I could be wrong. We'll see when the year ends. But I think that doesn't indicate that I treat the citizens like I'm buying French fries. So you can tell I'm a little bit irritated by that comment. Okay, anybody else? I think we have a hand raised. Susan Kilborn.
Yep.
Susan?
Well, I guess you got to hear from me front and back. First of all, I want to say no one who doesn't show up to the meetings, I go to every single meeting. I may not be there in person. I am on Zoom, and every one of you sitting up there, and some of you in the audience know that I do. And I resent people coming up to the podium and trashing our mayor and essentially the majority of our city council when I've never seen that person once at any meeting. And furthermore, I blame the citizens, Mr. Miller, if they get upset about property tax or sales tax increases for not showing up at the meetings, because they're going to be the same ones complaining about the bumps in the road and we need this and we need that. North Ogden City is not a damn money tree. And now I have something else to say. And this is more addressed. I'm taking the blood pressure down, people, but I care about this city. And I don't like when my council members and the mayor are attacked over things when they don't know where they're coming from. So anybody who wants to text me, come at me. I'll defend them. Because I know, I listen. I'm here all the time. Okay, Mayor, do you have to cut me off or can I ask Ryan Barker and the police?
As long as you don't go past 5 minutes, I don't have to cut you off.
Okay. My question is kind of for Mayor and Ryan and Police Chief. Mayor, you want to do a pardon. I want to tell you, I am sick and tired also of the amount of fireworks illegally set up above me on the bench here. I don't know what it is with these people who think they need to compete with the city's fireworks, but I'm telling you, I want permission to go up there with my cell phone or a big camera, and I'm going to get these people, and I want you to find them. And also, Mayor, you're going to have to maybe do a pardon, or police chief, because I'm a sassy senior and I will go up there and I will take them on.
I'm going to have to really think deeply about pardoning you, Susan, but I'll give it some thought.
Okay, I've said my piece.
Thank
so
you.
Taking it down.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else like to comment this evening? Okay, I see none. We'll move on to comments from staff. Scott, do you have anything? Chief? Dave? Casey? Who else have we got here? Joyce? All right. Council. Do you, yes, Councilmember Pulver.
Just that the Citizen Budget Committee, I know we're not meeting again, right? Anyway, just appreciate all the people, and actually 2 in here. See, Sandy? Yeah, no Sandy. But just appreciate all the effort and time that went into that. That was an extensive amount of time. What is it? Was it 10 meetings, 8 meetings? I'm spacing how many meetings we did, but there was a lot of time before that, a lot of time after that that went into going through all the yellow sheets, going through line by line, going through figuring out we thought out the box. And as you heard some of the arguments that we had for, I mean, there was such a thing as cementing over the pool. We don't need that anymore. So, I mean, there was a lot of, everything was on the table. So the Citizen Budget Committee did a lot of, I say crazy stuff, but we thought outside the box, and I appreciated that. So I hope we keep doing that.
And thank you, Councilmember Pulver, for taking on that assignment. I think at least 2 years in a row now, and leading that discussion. And I was able to attend numerous of those, not all of them, but there was some very open discussion and ideas thrown out. And I appreciated Mr. Swanson, who chaired that, and bringing their information to the council for consideration in a very succinct and professional way. So thank you also for leading that effort. I believe that was put into place for transparency, to give the citizens opportunity to give us ideas on what we can do. And so, thank you again. Anyone else on the council like to make a? Oh, John, I forgot you as part of the staff. I'm sorry. Yes, John, what do you have to say?
Thanks for keeping me around for a couple more years. I do enjoy working here most days. I do have some days where I'm like, why do I do this? But I generally really do appreciate it, and I like working here. Cherry Days starts on Saturday with the Kit Collins skate event, and Ramp Day's the 5th, right, Dave? Yeah. Okay. So, and finishes on the 5th with Ramp Day at the pool, pickleball tournament, and the concert and fireworks that night. But there's the luau on Tuesday, the car show on Monday. Wednesday, there's nothing. Flick and float, sorry. The rodeo on Thursday. Friday's the vendor fair and the parade and everything. We still have not heard on the flyover. It's going to be the federal budget. If they fly the jets, we'll get them. If they don't fly, we won't. But come out and support. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends. And thank you for all of you for signing up to volunteer. I know we're going to see each other a lot that week, and it's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of work to clean up the park and just keep the fun going. So thank you all.
So John, could we talk about the sunrise service a little bit at all? That takes place 6:30 in the morning on the 4th of July.
Yes. And the breakfast and the 5K that morning.
Yes, the Kiwanis Club breakfast. We would hope you'd all come and support that. But it is the 4th of July, and the sunrise service will have, posting of the colors. We'll have a message from our representative, Mr. Ryan Wilcox, who will talk about a patriotic theme. And so I would encourage you to spread the word and come 6:30 in the morning. We have the children's concert, the choir coming. They'll sing a couple of songs for us. And so I would hope that all of you and your friends can attend 6:30 in the morning and then go over to the Kiwanis Club. That's their major fundraiser for the year.
Mm-hmm.
So just wanted to.
No, thank you. I should have had everything written down.
No, that's okay, John. That's okay.
See the Cherry Days page on the website for more information.
There you go. Any comments for the council? Council member Severing?
Yeah, just a couple of things. First off, if you knew John, you would know that that salary actually is lower than what he deserves. John's a good, solid, hard worker. I just had some citizens reach out to me about the baseball games. I'm just going to mention what they said. It was that games seemed to get delayed, but they sure cut them off quickly. They start late, but they sure shut them off. So
okay.
They're wanting to see games start on time, whether I'm just passing it on.
Okay.
Is that for sure North Ogden? Because I know that we share between Pleasant View and North Ogden. The ones I attended in Pleasant View were pretty good. So I just wonder if that's.
He said North Ogden.
Okay.
He said North Ogden.
Well, you can make mention of that to Becca and she can look and address the issue.
Reed, we would love to see you take the banner for Spend It Local. There's not one of us on this council that I've worked with in 8 years who would prefer not to raise taxes. We get as many calls for people calling and saying, how come we don't have our snow blowing being taken out quicker? You decide what you want. Do you want the services? And if you want the services, the employees deserve to be paid fairly. We want to provide the highest amount of service. It all costs money. It all costs money. We'll work hard to make sure anybody that's been has been noted a couple of times. Every year for 6 to 7 months, we're working on the budget. Not one of us wants to raise taxes, but not one of us wants to decrease services either. Maybe last thing, just quickly, we talked about the HOAs. We were going to talk to the other HOA management about the costs for So I just wondered where that went. We haven't forgotten that, right?
No, our
Okay.
plan was we were putting together a list and working with the engineer to get the word out to all of them, just so they know how much asphalt has gone up. And if they're trying to save for a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan, that they need to probably start saving more just because of how much it's moved.
Things just get expensive, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you, Councilmember Severing. Councilmember Barker?
Yep, just as we come down this row, I figure it's my turn. In regards to Susan's comment, our fireworks signs are ordered. They'll be put up. We're not doing digital billboards this year. We're going back to banners. Fireworks can be shot July 2nd through 5th. So any fireworks that's shot now is illegal, even though you can sell fireworks starting today. So it doesn't make sense, but
And is there a time frame? Can they shoot them till 1 in the
Yep.
morning, or is it
till 11 o'clock, except on the 4th, and then it's midnight.
midnight? That's what I recall.
Yep.
John, one other thing is that it appears the council is moving towards the transportation utility fee. I would like to have, as I've discussed before, and the council also, for those who literally can't afford to pay that, what is the threshold? Is it tied to the poverty level plus 125 or whatever it is? Because as you know, I've been very concerned about people's ability to pay along with the rest of the council. And there needs to be, so we don't get ourselves caught not being able to do that when the fee starts up.
Okay.
So if you could get with Dave or whatever and start saying, okay, here's how you can get that fee waived. And I think to Councilmember Pulver's point too, how will that elevate based upon, commercial use, et cetera, so that we're ready to move if the council
we are doing that.
does approve
Yeah,
that.
yeah, we'll do the study and we'll bring it back, and then there will be a public hearing and public notice as part of that. That's part of the new state process. But those are good points to reiterate. We had talked about them, and we will plan on including all of those things in the information that comes back to council.
Oh, okay, good. Anything else?
I have one more. Sorry.
I guess, go ahead.
This is actually my other job. Exciting news, July 1st, the paramedics are actually going in service here in North Ogden. This is a lot bigger deal than just saying we have new service, but now we have expanded service, and so we're having a push-in ceremony. It's going to conflict a little with the luau, but we're starting at 5 o'clock. We'll be done by 6, but it's going to be, you're going to see a new truck. It'll be in our parade. So we'll be ready to go. Yeah.
I think we talked about this before, but I wanted to commend the fire district. Most of our citizens did not know that our paramedics or EMTs could not perform certain life-saving functions in this city. That we had to wait for somebody from Ogden City to show up. And that was not, as Councilmember Barker can tell you, I wasn't really happy about that when I understood that. And so now they'll be able to perform life-saving services to the degree level that
Everyone
else can. So
all because of a piece of paper.
Yep, all because of a piece of paper. But once again, that's a service that our citizens deserve and should have access to. So please tell your team over there, we appreciate their efforts in getting that moved along. So with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn this meeting.